Good things come to those who wait. No, but good things do come to those who follow the advice in this video. Hello and welcome to the place where together we're all going to learn the tools, the skills, the resources that we need to earn, learn, and live on our own terms. And I want to start off this video by telling you a little bit of a story. A couple weeks ago, I was at the place where I take my golden retriever, Charlie Murphy, for play care, doggy daycare, whatever you want to call it, a couple times a week because, well, he is a ball of energy and sometimes needs to get that energy out whenever I am working hard all day. And I just need him to be able to socialize and exercise. Regardless, as I was waiting for them to bring him out at the end of the day, one of the girls working behind the counter at this place must have been a college student, maybe working on a project, and she asked me, "Hey, what is the worst advice you've ever received?" And I honestly didn't have an answer at first, and I thought about it for a minute, and I realized that the worst advice I've probably ever received is a saying that we're all very familiar with. And that saying is that good things come to those who wait. And you might be wondering why I would say that that is bad advice. And I will say that while oftentimes the intention behind the advice is good, it often gets misinterpreted or interpreted in a way that is actually not healthy and not helpful to us and will lead us to believing that things are just going to come to us if we're patient enough and that everything will be okay. And then when those things don't inevitably come our way, it leads us to becoming bitter, leads us to becoming resentful, leads us to becoming feeling like the world is against us and things aren't fair. And so I want to talk a little bit today about why that advice is bullshit and what we can potentially do instead. And again, I don't think that it's necessarily the intention behind the saying good things come to those who wait is bad or malicious. I just think it too often gets misconstrued. I mean, when you think about this saying good things come to those who wait, we can't just be approaching life from some, the secret nonsense where if we just, want something bad enough and we think about it long and hard and we focus on it, then eventually it'll come our way and we'll be ready for it then. And that's not to say that mindset isn't important. Mindset is very important, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But if you think about the good things that you want that are going to come to you if you just wait long enough, think that while you're sitting around waiting for those good things to come to you, many times they have to come, most of the time, they have to come from other people, whether that's giving you a job offer or an opportunity or a raise or meeting, the love of your life or what have you. While you are waiting for good things to come to you, everybody else is handling all the shit that they have to deal with, trying to handle their own stuff. They're busy dealing with a host of other things. And some of those things that they're dealing with are important. Some of them aren't. We live in arguably the most distracted time in history where you've got a little phone in your pocket. You've got ads bombarding you all day, every day. You've got all of these things. We all have all of these things that are potentially distracting us. And if everybody has 42 things distracting them at all times, how likely is it that they are even thinking about, if they're even aware of the thing that you want, how likely is it that they are thinking about helping you get that thing? And because we're so distracted, it's so difficult to focus on any one thing at any given time. I mean, one could easily argue that focus in this day and age is akin to having a superpower. And that's not to say that what you want isn't important. It's just to say that there's no shortage of things to take our attention. But yet we assume that eventually other people will get around to us and will help us to get what it is that we want and that we're waiting for. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not always the case. One example from when I was early in my first executive role, I had, a dozen or so direct reports, and I was focusing in on helping some of them with their challenges. And maybe I was focusing a little bit more so on some of the more junior folks that I was managing. And at the time I was also managing a handful of more senior level engineers and architects. And there were certain people who I didn't check in with as often, and I didn't, set goals with as often, and didn't really pay as much careful personal attention to. And that's because as a leader at that time, I thought that they were kind of on autopilot. They had everything going for them. Everything was good. They were, doing good work and having a good time. And I ended up, after months and months of this and not really giving them the attention that they probably deserved, and talking with them about what it was that they wanted. One of my architects and I had a very long and heartfelt conversation where he felt like I was neglecting him. And it was not intentional on my part. And he assumed that eventually I would get to him and I would come around and we would talk about the things that he needed. And I was, again, not maliciously, just sort of, my attention was being pulled in a bunch of directions. I assumed that everything was good. So it's just one example of how we can all get busy and even have the best of intentions, but we don't get around to helping you with what you want. And so if you're one of these people who thinks, if I just want something bad enough and I mention it to somebody one time and eventually it'll come my way, rest assured that sometimes people just get so busy that despite even a desire to help you, they're not necessarily thinking about that thing that it is that you want. And so I bring this up not to just trash this saying, because, well, what fun would that be? I mean, sure, I guess we could just make a video about why this is a bad saying, but I'm not really in that kind of game, and I just want to make sure that we've got an alternative option of what we should be doing instead. And what I think we should be doing instead is actually really three things, and I'll lay those things out for you here now. So if we really want good things to come to us, and by the way, you can share these three things with other people, help them out too, or you could just share this video with them, and I'd really appreciate this. If you're enjoying this so far, click the like button. If you think you might enjoy this here in the future, click the like button. You can always take it back later, although that'd be kind of a dick move. But share this and help more people. But there are three things really that if we really want these good things to come to us that we should be doing. And those three main things are as follows. The first thing is that we need to get absolutely crystal clear on what it is that we want, and even more importantly than what it is that we want, why do we want it? I mean, we got to get specific. You can't just say to the world or even say to yourself, for example, I want more money. I want more money. I want to have more money. Well, I could give you $5 and say, well, problem solved, we're good. But I'd be willing to guess that that's probably not the more money that you're thinking of. So understanding, okay, I want $5,000 more this year, $10,000, $100 more a month. I want $1 million. Whatever it is, we have to get specific. You have to at least try to quantify, and measure what it is that you want. And I'll admit sometimes, and I've dealt with this even recently in my own life, sometimes it is difficult to really nail down those specifics and to quantify or to, really get a clear picture. And that's why the why is so important. Because sometimes we need to figure out really what we do want and why we want that thing. Like, what purpose will it serve in our life? What will it mean to us? What will it mean for us? How will that potentially affect our identity? Maybe wanting, $10,000 more a year in take-home pay, or wanting to have, $100,000 in your bank account, or whatever it is that you want. In the case where it's a money goal, maybe having that will help shift your identity to somebody, maybe from somebody who is, scratching and clawing or living paycheck to paycheck, into somebody who has a little more calm and a little more space and a little more padding in their life. And maybe that means for you that you'll be able to rest a little bit easier every night. All right. So really getting clear on the why behind why you want something is really, really important. Another thing we have to do whenever we are trying to get clear on what it is that we want and why is that we have to spend more time focusing on what it is we do want and less time focusing on what it is that we don't want. And now, I'm not saying that figuring out what you don't want isn't valuable, but saying, I don't want to smoke anymore is, sure, that's valuable. But understanding why you don't want to smoke anymore and understanding what you do want to do instead, changing a bad habit or moving towards something that is ambitious or something that is more attractive to us, it works a lot better if we have a replacement for that thing that we don't want to do anymore. So focusing in on the positive, and that incentive and what it is that you actually do want, that is really the more important thing. I mean, you can say, I don't want to work in this crap job anymore for this crap boss. But you could say that, and then what you end up with after going through this whole process, you could end up in a different crap job or with a different crap boss. It could be worse than what it is you were moving away from. But instead, if you were saying that you want a better job, and for you that meant X, Y, and Z, or if you were happy in the job you're in, if you just had a boss who met certain criteria, then you can figure out, okay, do I need to leave my job? Do I need to just get a new manager? Do I, is a good job with certain conditions more important to me than having the best manager on earth? So you kind of see what I'm saying here. Figuring out what it is that you do want and why it is that you want it is way more important than trying to run away from the things that you don't want. And I will caution you, sometimes we can get a little too specific, although that's harder of a thing to have happen, to where you're actually so specific on your goals that it's actually detrimental. But understanding why you want something helps you to figure out, okay, well, I want to make $10,000 more this year. Well, $10,000 is a good number, but if you make $7,000 more in the next year, have you failed? Well, not really. I mean, having that specific $10,000 goal is really valuable. But in this case where we feel like maybe we're being a little bit too precise or too specific, I always like to do things like use a range. I would like to make $5,000 to $15,000 more over the next year. I would like to lose 15 to 25 pounds in the next 6 months. I would like to go on 3 to 5 dates a month. You kind of get what I'm saying here. So you don't have to have this make or break number that ends up being too specific. But again, figuring out the why is going to be really, really helpful in this situation. And I'm going to keep hammering on the why, and why the why is so important. Because the why behind what it is that you want, you might say you want something, but if you don't have a compelling enough why, then what ends up happening is the goal ends up not being all that important, and we don't end up pushing hard enough towards it. You could say, I wish my student loans were paid off, and maybe let's just say your student loan payment is $300 every month. I don't know, let's make up a number. If you say, I wish my student loans were paid off, cool. Why? Well, because I don't like student loans. I don't like having them. Well, that's not a compelling enough why. But if you could say, I wish my student loans were paid off, and because that $300 a month, I could start putting towards a car payment, or I could put towards a house down payment, or I could put it into my 401k, or I could afford to take more trips. And I really want to take more trips. Like that, it's not hard to come up with a why that is compelling for you. You just need to take that extra step and make sure that you have a why, and that why is compelling enough to, spoiler alert, move you into action. And that's number 2, was that we have to take action. And a lot of people in the personal development community and a lot of people that I follow talk about taking massive action. We have to take massive action towards our goals. And I think that is extremely valuable. And that a lot of times inaction and sitting around and waiting, kind of the purpose of this video, that inaction is not going to necessarily be the way to go. But massive action also doesn't have to be something where it's this grand, huge, tremendous one-time action. And in fact, a lot of times that's more detrimental than the alternative, which I recommend, which is you just need to take consistent positive action in the right direction. And so yes, massive action can work, and it does work on many occasions. But for a lot of the problems we're trying to solve and a lot of these things we want to come to us, they're more likely to come to us whenever we are taking consistent action. And when we take consistent action, we end up putting ourselves in a position to succeed. We find ourselves in closer proximity to the thing that it is we want. So are you taking action to the point where you can actually say to yourself confidently, without feeling like you're lying to yourself, well, compared to last week or yesterday or last month, I am in a situation now where I'm more likely to get the thing that I want. So ask yourself, like, if I take this action, and after taking that action every day or every week or whatever it ends up being, like, am I in a better position this week than I was last week at getting what I want? And you should be able to do a gut check and be able to figure this out. And this is why I say that consistency is so much more important. And I struggle with this too, but I do everything that I can, and I use the tools at my disposal, and I go back to my why to make sure that I am taking consistent action towards my goal. Like, I think of it in sports terms, right? I said you need to spend a high percentage of your time in a position to win, right? In proximity to your goals, in a position to win. Now, again, in sports terms, if I'm on a football team, and American football, sorry, football fans, but I'm going to use an American football analogy here. If I spend the majority of my time with the opponents having the ball in my territory, then I am less likely probably to win. Sure, it could happen, but I'm probably less likely to win than if I spend a higher percentage of my time in my opponent's territory. Right? So the same thing applies to our goals. We want to spend as much time as possible in a position in proximity to what it is that we want and close to our goals. So let's say you're looking for a better paying job. Let's say that is your goal, and you've got, X number of dollars a year in salary or X number of dollars more an hour, like as, part of quantifying your goal, and you are clear on your why. Well, in taking your massive action or your consistent action, right, and taking action, you could take massive action and apply to 100 jobs in one day. That could work. You could play the numbers. It might work. Or you could take consistent action, which might be looking at jobs every single day, picking 5, picking 1 to 2 even, that are a really close match to what it is that you believe that you want, because you figured out your why, you got really clear on your goal, you got crystal clear on that. And then maybe you spend your time, instead of applying to 100 jobs in one day, maybe you spend a little time every day applying to 1, 2, 5 jobs. And you also spend a little bit of time following up on those jobs you've applied for that you haven't heard back on. These are all what I call high leverage activities. And that's a term I stole from other people way smarter than me. And I can do some more content and create some more videos in the future that kind of talks about high leverage. But the point here is you're getting bang for your buck, right? And instead of just randomly applying for 100 jobs, you are applying, you're following up, and you're putting yourself closer to the thing that it is that you want. You're keeping yourself in the vicinity, right? Putting yourself in position to win. I've spoken before on this channel about my first full-time job that I got, and how I ended up getting my first full-time software engineering job out of college, and how I didn't even realize that I was following these steps at the time, but it did happen to work out. And then, looking back, now I realize that I was doing that thing where I was at least putting myself in position to potentially win. I knew that I wanted to be a software engineer. There weren't a lot of jobs in the college town that I lived in and that I was graduating from, but I also didn't really want to leave. And so I applied for a job as a network administrator. A friend got my foot in the door. He had been working at this place, and he got my foot in the door, and I was not qualified for this position. And I interviewed for it, and the guy who interviewed me was very polite, very nice. I have a technical background, but the network admin part of that and running a network wasn't really my skill set, but I had all the coding chops that would have served a software development position. And he didn't hire me for that network admin position, but within a month or so, he was having lunch with somebody else in town who was looking to hire a software engineer. And he said, "Oh, I met this really smart guy. He's got all these skills in software engineering. He wasn't a fit for the thing I was hiring for, but I'll connect you with him." And lo and behold, I ended up getting that job. And so I put myself in proximity. I knew that going through connections would help me. Even though I didn't realize what would play out at the time, I figured, why not, at least be around people who are hiring technical people, and that'll get me closer to hopefully getting the job that I want, which I inevitably did. And the same sort of principle applies to getting my first executive job. I was working at a startup. I didn't even, again, realize that I was following these steps. This is all kind of coming after the fact. But I was working at the startup. I was, a senior engineer, and then sort of a developer team lead. And I was people managing people, all these things that I sort of volunteered to take on. And I knew I really wanted to move into this director role, this executive role. And I didn't honestly see it happening at the company that I was at, just because they had people in those positions. I figured maybe I was going to eventually hit my glass ceiling, but I had made my intentions known, and I was sort of showing up and kind of doing parts of that job already and helping out multiple teams and trying to help drive direction for the department and making sure that everybody could do their best work, all this other stuff. And at the same time, I was applying for other jobs in town here in Austin. And I don't know why none of them ever got back to me. I suspect it's because I didn't have any director experience. And a lot of times people want to hire you for a job assuming you've already had that title, right? And they think that because you've had that title before, you can do it again. And yeah, I kept applying. I knew what I was looking for. I knew kind of why I wanted to do it. And inevitably, even though I never thought that there was going to be opportunity for advancement in my current company, they saw that I was able to handle some of these things that a director would handle. And inevitably, the boss that I had at the time, who was a director, he ended up leaving to take on another opportunity. And so they had this opening, and they saw that I was already putting myself in a position to do this work. And I said I was taking other actions, trying to find this opportunity elsewhere. And I was just so focused on it. I knew why I wanted it, that when they eventually asked me if I wanted to take the role at the same company, I jumped at it. And sure, things don't always work out that way, but I knew what I wanted, and I was laser focused on that. And I was either going to find it at that company or at another company, and it inevitably worked out. And I can tell you that I've seen it even with people that I worked with at that job and other places, where the same thing has sort of happened. You just have to know what it is you want, and you have to really take that action to go after it. So what's the third thing? I mean, the first two, I know I've thrown a lot at you, but this third thing that we need to do is that we need to be ready to recognize when the thing that we want comes to us, because it's not going to always land in our lap, and we need to be patient. And this is where I say that, I think that saying all things come to those who wait is kind of bullshit, but it's also kind of not, because I think that what is really meant by this phrase is that all good things come to those who know what they want, are going to take consistent action to get what it is that they want, and are patient. It's not just waiting around, it's being patient. And what do I mean by that? I mean, sometimes this thing that you want, as I just sort of laid out in getting my first leadership role, my first executive role, sometimes the thing that you're looking for doesn't come exactly as you expect it to come. Maybe it doesn't come at exactly the time that you expect it to come, or in the timeline that you set out for yourself. We always think that we have these plans and they're always going to work out in a certain time frame. Sometimes they just don't. Maybe you're looking to make, $10,000 more a year in salary. Maybe you don't get that, but you find an opportunity that's going to pay you a signing bonus. And so you maybe got that amount at one shot, and then maybe you start working towards ensuring that you can get that same amount in the next year in salary, or you can get a raise, or you can get more, contributed to your 401k, or you can find a side hustle that makes you that amount of money, right? So not being so tied into and obsessed with how things come to us or when they come to us. And again, this kind of all goes back to that why. When you understand why something's important to you, you're more willing to be patient for it and know that it may not come at exactly the time you expect. And you're also more willing to sort of be open-minded and to keep your eyes peeled in case that thing comes to you in a way that you hadn't expected it to. I'm going to use one more example that kind of ties together a lot of what we've been talking about. And I'm going to keep harping on this student loan example, right? Let's just say again that your student loans are $300 a month, and you just wish that, somebody in the government would come in and would just completely forgive your student loans so you wouldn't have to pay the $300 a month anymore, and that would be great. But let's just say you're waiting on that, and then an opportunity finds you. Maybe you're applying for jobs. Maybe you are just looking for a change in your life, and you get offered a job that, let's just say, pays $10,000 a year more. Well, I've done the math over the years, and all things being equal, $10,000 a year after taxes is around $650 a month after taxes. So let's say you wanted your student loans to be paid off, but instead of somebody else coming in and forgiving them, you got this extra like $600+ a month after taxes if you take this new job. Well, that wasn't exactly what you're looking for. It's not student loan forgiveness, but you have gotten the opportunity to now pay off your student loans and potentially faster. You double down those payments, they get paid off even faster than, in half the time because of the way the interest works and everything. So the point is, you have to just accept that things aren't always going to show up when you want them to and exactly how you expect them to. But I want to hear from you. Like, what is something that you want to have in your life? Do you know why you want it? Is it something you've been waiting for, waiting to happen for you? Something that you think if you wait long enough, these good things will come. What is that thing? Why do you really, really want it? Do you have a compelling why in your soul? What are things you can go out and you can do consistently, take consistent, easy action, and move yourself in closer proximity to that thing? Put yourself in a better position to win. And are you okay with wanting that thing, knowing that it may not happen exactly as you like it to? It may not work out exactly as you want, and it may not, probably will not, happen exactly on your expected timetable. So do me a favor and drop a comment and let me know what that thing is for you. And then while you're at it, I would love if you'd share this video with one other person and see if that'd be helpful. Definitely click the subscribe button, because I'm going to be dropping a lot of things like this, and I think that it can be really helpful for all of us to have this conversation and be talking about how do we make these things happen so that we can really earn, learn, and live on our own terms. And that's why I'm here, is to share what I've learned, what I've experienced, what I've seen, and what other people can provide to me whenever I have those conversations with other folks and get those different perspectives. So also let me know if there's anything from this video that you want me to dive deeper on. Do you want to learn more, and do you want me to talk more about goal setting? Do you want me to help out with ideas on how to get to this why and this purpose behind what it is that you want? Do you want more content about taking more consistent or more massive action? Let me know in a comment about all of that. And again, don't forget to click that subscribe down there so that you don't miss anything. And again, if you think that anybody else would benefit from this video, shoot them a link. I love being able to share this message with anybody who's out there looking to make something better for themselves and using all the resources at their disposal. And with that, I'm out of here. I need to go and do a bunch of shit because, well, I've got a lot of goals that I want to hit, and I am about to take some more consistent action towards achieving those goals. Maybe I'll talk a little more about what those goals and those things are later, but for now, I appreciate you and I thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon.